Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is actually start modelling in the detail into our bookcase reference scene. So bear in mind, the first thing to always have done is to have your research folder available. So I've got all my images here of the specific one I'm basing it on, and I also have a couple of others as well that are just ones to show kind of rough measurements, so stuff like this bit that extrudes out, like how the average kind of distance on that, because the one I'm basing this on didn't actually have images of that. So I always keep these on my second monitor, so you won't be seeing them very much, but you can certainly just download your own kind of reference set. And so yeah, so the one I'm going to actually be making is this one, and all the photos will be available on Moodle, so if you want to, you can work on those too. Okay, so we've got a couple of things with this model. First of all, we've got these bits down here, and they don't appear to have any kind of specific. You can see there's a lock there, so they would actually open. So it's kind of up to you. I'm going to model it without these being able to open, but I will model the interior of these shelves here, making the kind of assumption that this shelving unit kind of carries all the way along here, so there's not like a specific kind of centre beam, although there would be, so you've got potentially there would be, so you've got the key there, but we'll leave that out. It'll just be one kind of continuous shelf. You've also got to decide, are you going to model in kind of all these fine details here, or kind of part model them in? And I think definitely these stick out quite a lot, so we will be modelling those in. As for this, we'll probably just do a kind of light version of it, and then use texture and normal to kind of do the rest. Okay, so the first thing to do is to block in the rough shape. So we can see from this that literally it goes straight down to the base, there's no feet or anything like that. So we know that height is kind of just right. Now it looks a little narrow, so we've got to decide, do we extrude this in here, which I think we probably will, or do we stick this out a little bit more? And we've got a couple of other reference pictures that we can use, so let's look through those as well. And actually you can see from this other kind of reference how that shelf continues all the way along, so yeah, we will do it like that. Okay, so the first thing we'll do then is kind of get that rough shape right. So if you hold right click and go to edge mode, select an edge, then go to insert edge loop. Now I might have mine set, you see I've got mine set to use 2 there, so we only want to use 1. And we'll probably use our right view here. And we can see from the image that this is roughly a third of the way along the height. So in theory you could use this, go to move mode, select that, hold shift right click, and then just hit delete. And then you know you've got that height kind of roughly right. Maybe we go a little bit higher. And then we can either extrude this out, so just select the face, hold shift, right click, and extrude face. And just roughly set these right to make sure there's no offset, and then you can just go back to move mode and just pull this kind of out and in as much as you want, and you can pull this in as well. Obviously you can use edge mode to select all the edges and pull them in if you want to be kind of precise about it. So we'll get that shape kind of roughly right. Okay, so the next thing to do then is to I'm probably just going to actually separate these off. So I'm going to select this top half here and then do polygons, mesh, extract, just to separate that as a separate piece. We don't need to particularly consider kind of looping and stuff here, since we're not using vertex lighting or anything, so we can do these as kind of separate separate pieces. Okay, so we'll start on the bottom bit first. So initially we have this kind of lip going in, so we'll go to Edge Loop tool again, and this time use relative, and we'll chuck in a loop there and a loop up here. And then we are going to need another one for the top bit extruding out here, and actually we'll need another one here as well. So if we go back to perspective mode, you can select all of these, and you can do extrude on these. I'm just going to go to my options and take the offset off and hit apply. And then it's probably a bit narrower than that, so we'll take that down to about 4. Then go back to move mode with the W key. And up here we need to select these, and if you just press G, that will do the same command again, and then W to go back to move. Now that extrude is probably a little big, and you can change that by scrolling down in your options here and just setting this down to be a bit lower, probably to about 4. Okay, now we also have, directly down the centre, we have the detailing of those two. And we also have another extrude around here, so let's put that in first. So back to insert, edge loop tool, chuck in another edge loop here. Face mode, remember you can use F11 on the keyboard as well. And then shift right click, extrude face. We'll take that down to quite low, maybe like probably even lower than that, about 2. Do remember, if you want to ever normal map bake these kind of details in, you will want to have an offset on it. So, sorry, a minus offset. Oh, I don't seem to like that very much. Okay, so if we just go to scale mode instead, and just actually scale that down. So you would actually need something like that. If you don't have that offset, then it won't create a normal map from it. So you need to make sure you have that offset. So again, remember you can actually put your settings in here, and then just scale that down. Obviously we're not going to normal map bake from this anyway, but I just wanted to explain that point so you understand it. So in terms of this front face, because we know we don't need all these loops connecting, again we can do the same thing here. We can select this face and do mesh extract, and then go to edge mode, insert edge loop, and to make sure it's in the direct center, use multiple edge loops, set this to 1, and on 0, that's why, and just add that in there. So you always make sure you've got at least one set in there, otherwise it's not going to do anything. Then if you press G, because I'd already done something else, so go back to insert edge loop tool, and this time we'll use relative distance, because what we want to do is actually drop one in around there as it appears on the thing. And we'll also drop one there. Now what we can do here actually is, if we go press F11 to go to face mode and delete this face, and then just select that object, you see the pivot's in the dead center. So this is why it's very useful to always be modelling in the center of the world. So we can actually use this here. If we go to edit, duplicate special, and notice it's on the x-axis, just scale one in and instance, then hit apply. So now we can just work on one and the other one will update for us. So the first thing we want to do is actually just extrude this face out a little bit. So So take that right down to about 1. I'm just going to hide unselected just to make sure it hasn't, and use frame to kind of zoom in just to make sure it's got polys and hasn't made any that we don't need. And what I'll probably do here is extrude this one out as well a little bit. So if we just press G, set the extrude level maybe just down to 1, like so. And if you really want, you could even like pull this in and fix stuff up that way as well, but we'll leave that like it is. Okay, so the next detail we need to do is these kind of the square paneling in here. And there's a couple of ways we can do this. One way is to actually use a polygon pipe primitive. We just scale that up. And you can actually set this to have subdivisions 4, and that will give you the kind of shape that we're after. If you hold spacebar, then hold on left mouse button and go to top view, and then F to frame, and then hold J to lock the rotation. You can actually rotate this round to be the right way. You can even do, so we'll leave that as is for now. So if we set the rotate mode to weld, hold J again, we can actually rotate this round, and then just start scaling it until it's the right shape that we want. So I'm going to go to perspective view again and just start making this into the right shape. Again, set the scale axis to weld, so we can just scale this out. If we hold control and select the blue one, we'll only scale on those two axes, so it'll be nice and maintain that nice even shape. So hold spacebar, hold down the Maya button, the left mouse button on the Maya symbol, and then go to our front view. And then just move this into place. And that's probably about right. Now if we zoom in on our actual image, we can see it's slightly more kind of ornate than what we've made here, so it might be worth actually fixing that. So we'll select our object again, go back to face mode, go back to perspective. I'm just going to scale that in slightly, maybe about like there. And then we've got a couple of options, but we might as well do it this way just so I can show you this technique. So we can actually use connect components to add a loop there, and if we just redo that, so select the edges, go to connect component options, in fact you can't actually do that, so one thing we might try then is add divisions to edge. No, that won't work. So we might as well just use our standard insert edge loop tool with multiple edges, like so. Okay, so if we now hold control and go to faces, to contain faces, okay, it doesn't like that. Nope. So we'll just select them like that. And again, hold shift and just extrude face. Make sure your thickness is a lot lower than that, probably even lower than that, so I'm just going to use the controlling handle here. And I'll try setting the offset just to see if this will work. Okay, so we have our rough shape now. Let's just zoom out a little bit, see how that's looking. And bear in mind we've got two of these square type shapes, so if we just do Control D to clone that but not to instance it, and then just scale one down to about there. Later on, when we unwrap these, we could just delete one of them out once we've unwrapped it and then clone it over again, but just for this example, I'll leave this like that. That time I did clone it with instance, so that we can tweak that when we need to. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do then is add the kind of fine detail onto the rim sections here. So again, edge mode, insert edge loop tool, change it to relative, and select all those faces, making sure we take off the back ones. And again, just a dead simple extrude face. And we'll try setting the offset in here. Just doesn't like it for some reason. Ah, right, I see why. It's because it's actually going through itself. So if you put minus 0.2, there we go. So if you do variables of 0 point something, because before what was happening was it was actually offsetting so much it was kind of going through itself. And you can always come back and change these ones. Now I've figured out why that was happening. So if I select these, for example, select this extrude here, I can actually come down now and actually fix that offset that was annoying me earlier, like so. There we go. So that's a little bit better. I might even on this as well just select these outer edges, and then just scale those in, remembering to select the blue one here just to give it that extra bit of detail. Yeah, and you can just select one, double click on it, and that will select it like that. And you can do the same on this one, although I'm not too fussed about this one, to be honest. This time I'll do it on the outer one like that. And also I'm going to move these edges to make sure they're kind of sitting flush with that wall. Okay, so all we need to do now is fix this top bit up here, and that's that first section done.